Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode of Coaching Conversations. And I wanted to make you aware of something very cool that we're doing on a subscription basis, and we'll put a link in each one of our episodes. But every Wednesday, we're going to be doing what we call an audio podcast workshop. That workshop will be roughly about 14 to maybe 20 minutes per episode, with each month having a theme from a coaching model, using feedback strategically, to coaching self-awareness, and so on. So if you could look in the body or in the content description of each episode, and you will see a link where you can join this subscription. These are literally 4 workshops every month teaching specific strategies to address a particular area of workplace coaching as it relates, again, to things like awareness, motivation, teamwork, and what have you. Here's the cool thing. It's only $10 per month, and each month you will get a handout that we will follow along with. So we also give you a tool for you to take notes as we go through each episode. We hope you'll check it out.
The most common word we hear all the time with people who are resistant or not coachable or not performing well is the word change. Most people fear change. Change somewhere down the road or in our history became this negative connotation people relate to. But let's think about that for a second. Change, when we're coaching people to change, it's funny because people cannot improve without an element of change. So where did this come from? So a lot of times people have varying degrees of why they avoid change, why they struggle with change. So one of the healthiest things we can do to help people embrace change is to find out what their relationship is with change. Here's how you do that. This is something called a behavioral indicator question. So Susie, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to immediately respond with the first word that comes through your mind. Now, I don't want you to overthink it. I want to only give you about 2-3 seconds. Don't worry about what comes out of your mouth. But when you hear the word change, what's your first impression? And that will give you a really good framework of understanding their relationship with change. If somebody says fear, anxiety, lack of confidence, whatever they say, ask why. Help me understand why. And you want to do it in a very thoughtful, smiling, professional demeanor, because change is very inhibiting to people. It's very intimidating to people. So change is something that conjures up a lot of emotions in people. Now, as an entrepreneur and someone who likes to build products, I love change. I love to build things. I love to innovate my way out of things. So I really embrace change. And it's funny because when I go into companies, and I remember a gal years ago that I coached who had done the same job for 18 years. She never received a lot of positive feedback, but she didn't receive a lot of negative feedback. So she was stagnant. She kind of hit a stride. I'm doing my job. I go home at 5. There's not a lot to think about. There's not a lot of stress. And she was an order entry clerk. So when my company got hired and I sat down with her, she was abrasive. She was rude. She pushed back. And finally, I used some humor and I got her to crack a smile. And I grabbed her hand, whether appropriate or inappropriate. And I said, okay, you got to help me understand. Where's this coming from? She said, am I being fired? I said, why do you think you're being fired? She said, I don't know what this coaching thing is all about. So what she was really saying to me was, I wasn't prepped. This wasn't properly communicated. No one's talked to me in this way or even inquired about my job. In 17 to 20 years, now all of a sudden you come in and I see all these things happening. And I asked her, I said, overwhelming? She said, yes. So think about that. For almost 2 decades, nobody gave her feedback, positive or negative. Nobody inquired about her job. Now all of a sudden an outside agency comes in, and all of a sudden I looked at her and I said, well, first of all, I have to tell you something. I really appreciate your honesty. She said, what do you mean? I said, I wanted to find out where you were coming from. I didn't want to make assumptions. And by making that statement, I immediately ascertained we had developed an element of trust. Did she love what we were doing? Was she falling in love with the process of coaching? No. Did she get there eventually? Yes. Had I not had that conversation around change and understood what it meant to her, I would have been working with someone where I didn't have clarification of understanding. So find out people's relationship with this thing called change, and it will serve as a great apparatus to start the conversation. Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21 day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.